Good evening. Good evening, Le Devoir. You promised our colleagues to reach a balanced budget, but then you seemed to have changed the definition of a balanced budget. So if we keep the traditional balance of a budget, namely taking into account investments and various operations, you still commit to reach a balanced budget in how many years? Answer: yes, we'll see. And this is the time to build for the future. And this is the reason why I changed the budgetary framework, namely to have an operational balance, which includes most of the Canadian government's expenditures, including debt transfer and half of the expenditure programs for the federal government. However, there are some programs, federal programs, which are extremely good in catalyst for private investment in Canada. And this is precisely the right time, as we are trying to meet a crisis with the American impact. This is the time to change many things, including artificial intelligence and clean energy. These are two important chapters of our budget, and we have now the opportunity to invest massively in these chapters, and a small amount of federal investment can be the catalyst of a huge investment from the private sector. So it's approximately 1% of the budget, not more. So you said that there could be a need for exceptional powers for some urgent or emergency projects. Do you think that Quebec might veto a pipeline which might be crossing another province? Yes. The answer is yes.
Thank you. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News. Why is it that you can make time to fill out your security clearance papers but won't proactively disclose your corporate interests?
Because I'm received those security papers as part of this process for the leadership debate. The real question is, why can I fill out my security papers in the course of 2 weeks, arrange for an interview, have a police background check, be in a position to get my security clearance, and Pierre Poilievre, after 3 years, can't do any of those things?
Are you serious?
At a time when we know there's foreign interference in our democracy and our country is under threat.
Wanted to get your thoughts on Mark Carney and your relationship with him while you were Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, and any advice you have to Canadians who think he might make a good Prime Minister.
Well, Mark Carney was Governor of the Bank of England, and under his tenure, too much money was printed, which did damage to the British economy and put our economy off track. He, at the last election, endorsed Rachel Reeves' economic policy. She's now become Chancellor. It's been a disaster for Britain. The country is heading for bankruptcy.
I'll say one other thing. I've had security clearance in the past. I've had Five Eyes security clearance in the past. This is important information. And the idea that you could lead a major political party in this country, let alone think you could be Prime Minister, without having access to this information, it's absolutely irresponsible. That's the question.
But then why won't you proactively disclose your corporate assets?
Just feel I'm in the middle of a leadership campaign. I will be subject to all the conflict of interest rules and the ethics rules. I will happily comply with all of them. It's a straightforward process. That will begin as soon as this process ends if I'm selected as leader of the Liberal Party.
No, God! No, God, please, no! No!
Hi, Mr. Carney. Brian Platt with Bloomberg. You've talked in general about your budget and approach, but you haven't gotten into very many specifics. When you talk about a tax cut, how are you approaching taxes? How do you want to cut? Are you talking about an income tax cut? And if so, how broad?
Yeah, okay. So, Brian, thank you for the question. There's several aspects. Some that we've been very specific about, others which we will be specific about in the coming weeks. Where have we been specific? We've been specific that we're eliminating the consumer carbon tax. We're taking a variety of other measures around that. And one of those measures that is related to, but not exclusively related to that, because it's a broader aspect, is a middle-class tax cut that will more than make up for the loss of the rebate that Canadians receive. So maybe just to be clearer than maybe it was on the stage in that debate, those numbers vary by province. The national average is about $800 for a family of four, not a different number that was mentioned. But more broadly, we'll calibrate middle-class tax cut so that it is at least making up for that. It's an important aspect. We will also, I've been very clear, that we will reverse this increase in the capital gains tax that the government put in place. This is a crucial point for two reasons. One, obviously it has a tax impact for those who have put money at risk to build this country, to build businesses, build this country. This is a time to build. This is a crucial aspect of our economy. We have an opportunity to build millions of homes, an opportunity to become an energy superpower in both conventional and clean energy, an opportunity, again, we're here in Montreal, one of the centers of artificial intelligence, an opportunity to take our leadership forward on that. And half of the debate was the discussion of how we react to the Americans and how we protect us for the future. Well, part of that is we need to catalyze, and it went to the first question as well, we need to catalyze enormous private investment. The great news is we can do it, but we need bold policies in order to do that. We need big changes to economic policies. These are big, big changes, both in terms of how we manage the budget and how we're going to change the tax system, role of government, and who our trading partners are going to be. But these are big changes that are really, really going to deliver for Canadians. It's going to allow us not to get up in the morning and look on X or Truth Social and wonder what's coming from south of the border. Thank you.
Next question, please. Prochaine question.
Bonsoir, Frédéric Plante with the Globe and Mail. You were the vice chairman at Brookfield Asset Management prior to
the chair. I was the chair.
Sorry. In the fall, they moved their head office from Toronto to New York. Did you approve of that decision, and what does this say about your commitment to growing Canada's economy and betting on Canada as for now?
Okay. So two things. I'll just correct a few factual things. One, I was chair of Brookfield Asset Management. I ceased to be chair on the 15th, I think, of January when I announced for leadership. Also ceased to be chair of Bloomberg as well. Ceased to be United Nations Special Envoy on Climate Action and Finance. Ceased to be a number of other things.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Ceased to be United Nations Special Envoy on Climate Action and Finance. So I resigned all my positions because I am all in for Canada, all in for this leadership, all in during this time of crisis to build our great country. Okay, that's the first thing. Second, the decision, the formal decision of the board, happened after I ceased to be on the board. I do not have a connection with Brookfield Asset Management. No longer have a role, obviously, as I resigned in the middle of January. Third thing I'd note, though, is that Brookfield has several companies that represent about 10% of the Toronto Stock Exchange.
Right.
It is one of the biggest investors in this country. It is one of the biggest investors in the world. And it shows the ability of this country to build. We need more of that building here in Canada. But we need government policy in clear direction in order to do that. And that's the direction that I can bring to build Canada for the future. And it is not the direction that someone like Pierre Poilievre takes his marching orders from Donald Trump, his attack lines from the MAGA world can bring that level of investment to our country. Thank you.
Dernière question, last question, Christian Noël.
Bonjour, Christian Noël de Radio-Canada.
Ah oui.
Christian Noël,
Pour
Radio
équilibrer un
Canada.
budget,
In order to balance the budget, you need to carry out budget cuts. Where are you going to bring the axe? Nothing, no reduction of the civil service, no reduction in the provincial transfers. However, we will increase productivity vigorously within government programs, because for a long time the government has been targeting outcome, and this is what my government will be doing.
Can I in English?
We're out of time. Oh, in English, yes, in English.
I'm allowed to answer in English. Sorry, they're strict on the. My apologies. They're strict on the time for things to be equal, but for the English translation, question was cuts in the budget or to balance the budget, the operational budget. How would we do it? Would there be cuts? En effet, ouais. No cuts to public service. No cuts to transfers to provinces. No cuts to individuals. Okay, absolutely clear. Focus on broader program spending, which is a subset of the overall budget. One of the advantages I can count. I know how the budget works. I've worked on budgets over the years. It's a subset of the budget with a focus immediately on increasing the productivity of those programs. For too long, the focus of governments here has been about inputs, in other words, dollars spent. You often hear about programs, and the answer is X $100 million spent or Y billion dollars spent, not about what the objective is. We have to manage towards those objectives. And I'll add one other thing just from the debate, and thank you all, by the way, for coming and watching the debate and following all these issues. It's hugely important. I thought Mr. Bayless made a number of important points in this regard. He and I both see an ability to bring technology and others in order to multiply the impact. And this is crucially important. We need a government that cuts ribbons more than makes announcements. Thank you very much.
Thank you,